is your captain speaking. If you look out your window, you'll see a very dead pyromaniac. I hope you enjoy flying Kyle Airlines.
Oh my god. Let's go! There it is. Yo guys, what is up? Max in our first Descendant video, and today we're going over my Kyle build. Now, Kyle just got buffed yesterday. He got a ton of quality of life, some buffs, a little bit of nerfs, but the result is that he is just a much more capable character. They buffed his fourth ability, which was already one of the highest single instances of damage in the game by almost 3 times the amount of damage, and subsequently also buffed his superconductive bombing module that allows him to fly around in his fourth and drop a bunch of bombs. And now Kyle is not only a decent, he's an okay mobber, but he's a pretty good bosser. Today we're going to be breaking down everything you need to know about him. Hope you guys enjoy the build video. Let's get right into it. Real quick, before we dive in the video, credit to Vash Kawai for posting a build like this. First, I haven't seen his video, but everyone in my chat yesterday was coming in like, oh, you got to try the superconductive bombing mod. Vash posted a video about it. So I went and tried it, and we messed around with it. And I found some pretty interesting things to do with this bombing mod, but credit to him for doing it first. All right, let's dive into the video. So the very first thing to talk about is the superconductive bombing Transcendent module. Now this reads, while airborne continuously consume magnetic force to drop bombs, the bombing stops when magnetic force is completely depleted, and additional damage from magnetic force is not triggered on collision. Airborne time increases with skill duration up, but the base airborne time is reduced. So basically, when you first start using this mod, and you don't really have anything built on Kyle, you're going to go up into the air, you're going to fly around, and you're going to drop a few bombs, but most of the time you're going to run out of your resources, and even though you're still flying around in the air, you run out of bombs, and then your ult isn't really doing anything. So the big thing to understand is our goal is to drop as many bombs as possible, and there's a few things that are really important for that. The first is having a lot of magnetic force. We consume, at base, 1,000 magnetic force per bomb, right? And that magnetic force scales off of our amount of shield. Our magnetic force is our max shield times 200%. And we're going to want as much shield as possible, because as much shield as possible is going to give us as much magnetic force as possible. And you can think of that as kind of like your mana. The more max shield you have, the more mana you're going to have when you are using your fourth. Note that it doesn't matter what your current shield is when you jump into the 4. It just matters what your max shield is. So if you're losing shield, you're not going to deploy less bombs. It just matters how much magnetic force you have, which is determined by your shield, but not your current shield, just your max. So in order to get our shield up, we're going to be using 2 mods, HP Conversion, which gives us max shield and increased shield. This isn't the most amount of shield that you can get. They just buffed up Overwhelming Shield, and now you can use this mod with 2 health mods and a shield mod, and that was getting me to 30,000 shield. But I found that you only needed enough shield to be able to drop these bombs, and then the other things we're going to be focusing on are more damage oriented, and I wasn't seeing a huge return on just stacking as much shield as possible. We just needed enough that we could drop as many bombs as possible, that we could kill bosses, and now we're going to focus more on damage. So the next things that we're going to use is we're going to use some non-attribute stuff. Obviously, this is a bunch of modifiers, so we don't really need modifier. We're going to use non-attribute specialist, which is going to give us a ton of damage. We don't want to sacrifice any cooldown because we have to build up his fourth ability and all of his magnetic force to be able to use that. So we don't want to sacrifice cooldown because we're going to need to use a bunch of his skills when we start. Now that we've got a bunch of base damage, we're going to go for some crit modules. So we've got skill insight for crit hit rate, skill concentration, and we're going to be using front lines. I don't have my Kyle fully catalyzed. I probably would go for 4 crit mods, but those are the most important ones. Kyle does not have a lot of crit chance, and it normally doesn't make any sense to invest into crit for his fourth ability because it's one hit. However, with you dropping like 90 bombs while you're flying around, getting a like 15 to 12% chance that some of those bombs are going to hit for almost 4 times damage is actually a pretty huge damage increase for this. So I did find it worth going into crit. There isn't just that many mods that you can use to scale the fourth ability. So crit is definitely worthwhile. Next, we're going to go for a little bit more damage with Dangerous Ambush. This is going to give us obviously damage when an enemy isn't targeting us. We don't really care about that. What we do care about is the on and skill attacks against immobilized enemies. We get 50% more damage. We're dropping a bunch of bombs. The boss will go down into its like kind of like kneeling state, and during that, these bombs will just be hitting for 50% more damage, which is freaking insane. And the next mod that we're going to use is Maximize Conservation. So Maximize Conservation, if we put this here, then is going to reduce the amount of magnetic force that the bombs cost so that we can drop more bombs. I originally was using Strong Mentality and Maximize Conservation. Strong gives us another 15%. I found that I was killing bosses even when I took this off, so I don't think this is overly necessary. Obviously, it's a little bit more quality of life, a little bit more bombs dropped, but I found just one conversion mod is really all you need. And then we actually get into the most important piece of the puzzle, which was something like this mod made a huge amount of difference in my consistency on killing bosses, and that's actually skill expansion. Not something that I was expecting to be super important. I was thinking maybe we go for more duration so that we can fly around for longer. Skill expansion allows us to get more radius on the bomb drops, and this just means that when we're dropping 90 bombs, we can get 90 bombs to hit rather than dropping 90 bombs and getting like 40 of them to hit. Getting the radius of the bombs to increase felt really, really great for getting consistent kills on bosses. So that is the last mod that we're using. Now for the final mod, if you wanted more damage, I would go for Emergency Measures. This will give you some more crit rate and some crit damage. That would be really nice. You could also go for something like Non-Attribute Succinctium. This would give you more power for your skills. That would be a great choice. You could go for Mentality. I don't think you really need it for more skill cost. You could go for more duration if you wanted it with something like Skill Extension. There is a lot of options here. I haven't fully finished mine, so I do need to do some more testing, but I wanted to get this video out for y'all. I would probably personally go Emergency Measures just for some extra crit rate and damage. This is just kind of always going to be good versus sometimes you're not going to need the other things. You could also go for like a little bit of cooldown. So if you're in an extended fight, obviously with this being a pretty short cooldown, it's actually like 120 seconds if you don't use Superconductive. It's only 60 seconds if you do. So you could use something like MP Conversion if you really wanted. Throw this on and get 36% cooldown so that you could use it more often in fights. That would be some pretty nice quality of life. Lots of options to use. This is the Lore Accurate tab. As you can see, it's obviously the same. Just wanted to try something new there where we like walk through each mod individually and place them on rather than kind of showing them all at the same time. So let me know if that felt easier to follow along with. For his mobbing setup, unfortunately, Kyle, in my opinion, just feels worse for mobbing than he used to, mainly because they increased the cooldown of his Magnetism Spurt, which used to be his like best AoE mobbing ability. You could get this on like a 2-second cooldown and just click it, spam, and just AoE damage. They did buff its range, but they made its cooldown 30 seconds at base, which just feels worse in my opinion. So for his mobbing build, we're going to focus on a bunch of cooldown with multi-talented, nimble fingers, and MP conversion. We're also going to rock focus on noun attribute and focus on tech. Obviously, I would have this fully ranked if I could, but this does give us still a bunch more cooldown. And then we're going to go for some nice amounts of shield and HP for some like well-rounded play with skill expansion, which gives us more range. And this will allow you to spam the 1 and the 3. You can also rock superconductive bombing. The big thing with superconductive bombing, if we take that off, his fourth ability is on a 120-second cooldown, which we can reduce down to a 30-second cooldown. But with the bombing, it actually halves the cooldown. So now if we go to the bombing mod, I now put it on. It was originally 120 seconds. Now it's 60, and now it's down to 15 seconds. So you can almost kind of use this skill if you're getting enough resources and building up your magnetism. You're able to use this pretty often and just play as a carpet bomber for mobbing, which is pretty awesome. And this is definitely a fun playstyle if you want to go for it. But definitely, I think he's shining a little bit more for bossing than mobbing, in my personal opinion. For weapons, reactors, and external components, I strongly recommend using the Secret Garden. The Secret Garden is perfect for Kyle. One, because it's got the Gardener ability that whenever you use a Dimension skill, you can get free magnetic force. So you're able to build up your magnetic force whenever you're using any of his Dimension abilities. And whenever you use a tech ability, you can proc Pest Control. His one ability, which you get 3 charges of, and they're on really low cooldown, you can just spam them 1, 2, 3, and have a chance to proc 3 stacks of Pest Control, which will give you like a 37% fire or skill power damage increase. So what I usually try to do when I walk into a boss fight is I get his custom resources all the way up, his magnetic force, and then right before I'm about to launch my 4, I hit his his first ability 3 times. Boom, boom, boom. Hope to proc 3 stacks of Pest Control, which gives me a sizable damage increase for his 4th ability. So Secret Garden will make a massive difference on Kyle. Pairing that with a Secret Garden Reactor. This was just the reactor that I had for Ajax. For bossing with Kyle specifically, I would go for tech, skill power, boost ratio, and damage to Colossus would be fantastic. And lastly, we're using the Slayer set. I tried putting on a bunch of pieces that just gave me more like shield, or if we were using overwhelming shield, using a bunch of pieces that gave me more HP, and that was nice, but it wasn't as much damage as just putting on 4-piece Slayer, which gives us that 26% skill power increase. This with 3 stacks of Pest Control from the Secret Garden will jump up your damage a ton. So super important to wear 4 pieces of Slayer and try to find on your Slayer processor a extra roll of max shield so that you can get a little bit more max shield for him, which will help you scale up your damage. Guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. Right now, Kyle is in a bit of a weird place, but if there's one thing that's certain is he can do some really legit boss damage, which is lovely to see. I'm going to be working on my SEMO and like Frana guides after this, so if you ever want to hang out on the stream, twitch.tv/Moxie, I'm going to be working on that stuff today, and I'll catch you all in the next one, guys. Take care. Peace.